Welcome to the Jazz Piano School podcast, episode number 239. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. This particular podcast episode is going to start a three-part series on the art of practicing. In this episode, I'm going to go over practicing improv. Now, a lot of times we think about practicing improv as being pretty nebulous, pretty mysterious, like we just need to learn lines and licks and transcribe, and hopefully we're going to get better, right? Unfortunately, that's not always the case, and I'm going to show you the system that I use all the way up until this day. I still use today to practice new improvisational tools or any improv that I'm just trying to touch up and get better and refresh. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com/Black Friday 2021 to get details about our amazing Black Friday offer coming up and our release of our brand new Playbooks, which actually this education right here is going to be taken directly from our practice playbook, and I'm kind of reteaching you in today's podcast. Also, if you're interested in our full 6-stage blueprint curriculum that's completely free with a personal assessment, go to jazzpianoschool.com/blueprint. With that being said, let's dive right in. Here we go. All right, so here we are. We're going to start practicing improv. Now, the very first thing when practicing improvisation and learning a new bit of improv education, right, is to develop a relationship with whatever strategy it is that you're learning. Let's say I was learning the altered scale. It can be any tool you want, and you need to remember that learning and practicing improv it takes on different shapes and forms because there's a difference between practicing in a tune and practicing outside of a tune, and this holds true for not just improv but comping, right? Now, we are practicing outside of the tune right now because tunes essentially are just random chords put together in a random progression order. I shouldn't say random, but like however the composer intended, right? So if you can practice your improv, through lots of chords and be very familiar, then when you get to the tune, you shouldn't have any problem really because you've already worked on those chord progressions. Nothing changes. Chord progressions in a tune are simply that. They're just chord progressions put together by the composer in a certain way, right? So the first step to learning some sort of improv tool and practicing it is developing a relationship with it. So the very first thing I'm going to do, the very first step is I'm just going to play this. I usually like to put my left hand voicing or bass note. I do like a root position chord to help me out so I can hear essentially what's happening. All right. And as I'm doing this, I'm listening. I'm listening to the notes. I'm developing a relationship with these notes. I'm just learning to play the notes. And again, this is just in one key. This whole step-by-step process has to be done in every single key, right? So that when you get to an F7, for example, in a different key, you can play that, right? Or it doesn't matter what key, but it has to be done in all keys. That way, when you get to that in a tune, you can play it. So I'm developing my relationship. I'm moving up and down. And I'm comfortable with it now. I can play it up and down, and I feel pretty good. And I'm not just talking about scales. I'm talking about any sort of improv education, bebop approach notes. It could be tritone. It could be a tritone reharm. It could be a sus reharm, right? You could be soloing over sus. You could be working on your bebop approaches, or maybe your half step blows. Right? Any type of improv education, meaning a strategy, a method, a tool, anything that you want to implement into your playing, this is the system that I use. So I just had to throw that out there. So the next portion of this is to work within different means of the tool. Meaning, I'm going to start to check out this beginning portion here. And with no pressure, no metronome, no self-criticism of making mistakes, I'm going to take a couple of notes, maybe 4 notes, and just start experimenting. Different rhythms, different patterns, motifs. You can swing it, you can not swing it, totally up to you. I'd recommend doing both. Then I'm going to start to do different registers. Oops. I'm just exploring. I'm having a good time. I'm building a relationship with this particular area of my improv tool. Do you see that, right? And so what's happening here is I'm really getting comfortable with just this area. Then I'm going to move to a new area. Maybe I move to here. Different tempos, different styles, straight, swung, fast, slow, medium. Again, no metronome, and it doesn't even have to be in time right now. There's no pressure. Again, I know it doesn't sound like jazz now, but this is the process that I use to really connect with the improv tool that I'm working on. Then obviously, what I'm listening for here is certain types of things that I like, that stand out to me, that I kind of want to revisit, right? And again, through this whole process, my ear is actually being trained just by listening to this over and over and over again. My hand is being trained by playing it over and over and over again. And again, this is just in the key of C right now. I'm just using my C altered. Right? 10, 15 minutes. Finally, after I've segmented the different areas of the tool, then I'm going to start to open it up to the whole range. Okay? But still give yourself a little bit of constraint, right? Meaning maybe you just do half, right? The scale. And again, at this point, I'm still experimenting. There's no pressure at all. So maybe not the full yet, but maybe I just go up to the F sharp or the G sharp. Still experimenting. Finally, I open it up to the whole scale and I start experimenting. And throughout this entire time, there's been no metronome. There's been no pressure to swing, no pressure to, play correct things. This is all an exploratory process of you developing your relationship with this particular tool, developing your ear, your hand, your eye-hand coordination, getting used to it. Finally, after I've gone through the entire scale and I've explored and experimented with all the notes, we start to apply pressure, meaning we put on a metronome and we start to swing and create actual improv. Now, again, we're still not going to play the entire scale just yet. You still want to put some constraints on, depending upon your skill level. So maybe I just use this area right here. But I am going to try and improvise and make music, but just right here. I have constraints. I'm improvising. I'm getting used to that area, but I now have applied pressure, meaning I have a metronome going, and I am trying to improvise, creating some sort of melodic and musical feel. It's not experimentation anymore, even though it is slightly, right? Then I'm going to open this up to other areas as well. I'm going to do the same thing with applied pressure, like 60, 90, whatever's comfortable for you, 120. And start to move into different areas of the scale. Maybe I go from here to here now, or here to here. Completely up to you. It doesn't matter. I try as many combinations as possible. Again, still kind of experimenting, but with pressure. Finally, I open it up now to the entirety of the tool. Maybe in this just register right here, though. Maybe I'm not going even exploring higher registers yet, and I start to make, improv around this area right now. I'm listening for different things I like, different patterns, different sounds, different movements that kind of are, ear catching to me that I kind of want to revisit. And again, no matter what skill level you're at, just go at a tempo that works for you and explore, experiment. You really can't make mistakes. You're just starting to use this tool and get used to it. I mean, even if your improv sounds like this. That's totally fine. Just work at whatever level works for you. And this is actually practicing. You are practicing the use of this tool in an isolated environment. Now, we've only stayed within the key of C, so we want to start getting used to real life examples now of tunes, right? Real life scenarios, but not in a tune yet. The tune is going to be the last step to implementing our improv. And if we've done our due diligence, when we get to the tune, we shouldn't have much to worry about because everything will have put in all the hard work ahead of time. All right? So now we want to start utilizing this tool in some sort of progression, right? Because if we're just practicing a C altered over C7, like that doesn't really translate to making music, right? So we need some sort of progression to get the musical ideas flowing. So pick a progression that you may be used to, like if you're comfortable with a G minor 7, add that in as a 2-5. Remember, 99% of jazz is 5-to-1s, 2-5-1s in different combinations and forms. So if you can practice things in 5-1 combinations for progressions or 2-5-1 combinations of progressions, you're going to be practicing the majority of what you need to know for individual educational bits of information. Excuse me. So I'm going to go from a G minor to a C7 now and start to implement my altered scale at the C7. Here we go. Now, there's no time here. There's no pressure. We're reverting back to a no metronome process with no pressure. I'm still experimenting. And again, it doesn't even have to be 4 beats per measure. You could fluff over the G minor for as long as you want at a time. And then move into your C7 altered. Again, the purpose of this is to get used to the progressional movement, and start to hear the sound of the change, right? And then I'm going to move into my C altered. And I'm going to keep going back and forth. Finally, once I've explored that a little bit and I'm feeling comfortable with the change, then I can start to apply some pressure. I can start to apply some pressure through a metronome in 4 beats, a systematic 4 beats per chord, so that we actually are starting to experience a tune-like example, right? So we might do this. So I did 2 bars per chord. That's okay too. That's another real life scenario, right? So I would actually practice as many of these as possible. But do 2 bars. You could do 1 bar. And again, we're still getting comfortable with the tool. We're still developing a relationship with it, and starting to practice tune-like scenarios now. Now, if you're an intermediate, I know I'm playing it like a beginner. And if you're a more advanced player, you can take this to whatever level you want, right? I think a lot of advanced players kind of hear that and they're like, oh, it's too easy for me, right? Make it harder. Just make it harder. Make it more like the level that you're at. Play bass notes to rootless voicings or custom voicings, right? Put a voicing that matches your altered and then still play the same thing. I've actually never played that probably before. That's really cool. So if you find something that sticks out to you that you want to remember, check it out. Like, go back and revisit that. That's a really cool line that came out through my process of experimentation. But again, that's a more advanced level. If you're a beginner, you're going slow with that metronome, putting pressure on yourself. And again, the process here is about making the change, making the progression happen between the G minor going to the C7. Now, finally, after you've practiced that 2-5, you want to kind of throw in that 1 resolution to get that 2-5-1 in there, because again, 2-5-1s are very, very prevalent amongst all tunes. So, G, C, F major. Make sure you're resolving to a chord tone of the new chord. 2, 3, 4. Right, and I can start to increase the level of practice. Right, you just keep going. And again, I just kept pushing the level slider there. I went for beginner and I started to add things. So pick a level that you fit into. It doesn't really matter. But again, the process here is we're still practicing tune-like scenarios outside the tune. So we just practiced a 2-5 for a while. Now we're practicing 2-5-1. Now start to practice other, textures, explore other things about this. Go into different registers, go into different voicings in your left hand, go into different tempos, different styles. Maybe play straight, Latin. I'm not using too many rhythmic trills and things like that because I'm trying to keep it more basic for everyone. But this is where you start to explore the 2-5-1 a lot, and then start to swing it. And really get into it. You're really starting to create now. And if you're having a hard time with this, then it's time to revert back into the previous steps a little bit to really develop more of that relationship. Go as slow as you need to. You don't need to swing it fast. Go at 70. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't even need to add your left hand. You can play bass notes. Sorry, I'm kind of playing behind the beat a little bit just to make it swing more. So we're really diving deep into the relationship building of this improvisational tool, even before we've played it in a tune. So many students jump directly to the tune. And this is what the analogy is like that I've been using in a lot of playbooks that we're going to be releasing on Black Friday, is that, tunes, like I just said before, are just different combinations of chord progressions. So if you can utilize the tool outside of a tune, when you get to any tune, you'll be able to execute, right? Can you imagine like a baseball player not working on their batting practice outside of a game and then stepping into a game and expecting themselves to like hit well or hit home runs or play well? It just doesn't happen. They practice their batting outside of games so that when the pressure's on and they are in game-like situations, it comes out naturally and they do well. The same thing holds true for jazz piano. You can't expect to deliver and execute on these, improvisational tools or anything else for that matter, voicing, solo piano, if you haven't worked really hard at the tool and developed a relationship with it outside of all the tunes. Right? Does that make sense? So this is what we want. So now that I've increased the lever of tempo and I'm feeling comfortable with this, and again, I'm only playing in one key. After I start to feel comfortable, in many keys, and again, it's completely up to you. This is a funny thing that I said actually in one of the playbooks I was recording earlier today, but the practice playbook, is that it's up to you how many keys you want to learn, because when you get to tunes, two things are going to happen. If you have worked on the tool, or anything for that matter, in all the keys, then when you get to the tune, you're not going to be scared of anything because you've already put in the work, right? No chord change is going to come up that you're going to feel scared about because you've practiced all the chord changes. You literally are comfortable with all the changes that you could possibly play your altered scale over. So all the dominant chords in all tunes are now on the table and you feel great about them. You don't need to be scared of them. But if you haven't practiced in all keys, and let's say you've chosen to practice only 7 dominant chords. Let's say I only practice my altered scale in C, F, B flat, E flat, and A flat. When I see a B7 chord or a G7 chord or a D7 chord, I'm not going to be able to utilize my altered scale over that chord in tunes, right? It's the give and take. So I might be scared of that or hesitant, or I might not sound great over those particular chords just because I didn't put in the work to learn them. Now, I'm not saying that you have to always learn all the keys first because it kind of takes the fun out of it, right? We all want to play tunes. But as long as you have an understanding of the work put in beforehand translates to the way you sound on tunes. It's not the opposite. The more time spent on tunes does not translate into you sounding better as a jazz pianist overall. Because again, tunes are templates. They're a set combination of chords. And if you practice over one tune, then you're just going to sound good over that one tune. And you may be copying licks, who knows? Anyway, the more you can kind of practice outside the tune and put it into the tune, the better you're going to be. So finally, our goal now is to take a tune and start to implement our altered scale in that tune over any dominant chord you want. So maybe I'm playing If I Were a Bell, right? I would now play my altered scale over that dominant chord or any other dominant chord I wanted in that tune. So I'd be soloing. And guess what? It comes out great now because I've already practiced my altered scale in a 2-5-1. And guess what? The first 4 measures of If I Were a Bell are just a 2-5-1. So I've already worked on that. So I sound great already. I don't have to worry about it or be fearful of the tune itself because I've isolated the progressions and worked on it and developed a relationship with that particular improvisation tool outside of tunes, and now I'm placing it into tunes with ease and flexibility. All right? Go to jazzpianoschool.com/blueprint to pick up the blueprint and assessment that we're giving away of our 6-stage full course curriculum with all the steps and the assessment to tell you exactly where you are on your journey. Go to jazzpianoschool.com/Black Friday 2021 as well to get all the details about our huge release of Playbooks happening this year on Black Friday, and obviously get access to the discounted offer that's going to be absolutely amazing and incredible coming up on Black Friday. Hope you guys enjoyed this. All this was taken from just one lesson from within a playbook, actually, the practice playbook, on integrating and practicing improvisation tools. That was just one step in the other 7 steps of the practice playbook. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, happy practicing.